Thanks, Rita. I guess I'm fired up and ready to go, but when we get in the middle of this, I don't know how fired up we're going to be because I want to share some hard facts with you, and I want to talk about what I think they mean. And I also wanted to set the stage here. And the stage that I want to set is, I'm not here, even though I've been involved with the Democratic Party, here in Chicago where I came from, and we usually win everything in Chicago. We're not quite as successful down here, we haven't quite figured that out yet. But I'm not here to talk as a Democrat today. I'm really here to talk to you, first as a business person who's concerned about the economic future of the United States of America. Second, as a citizen. And I'm here to talk, as a citizen, I'm here to talk about this fragile crucible we call democracy, and where do we stand today with that crucible. But third, I'm here to talk to you as an idealist. But as an idealist, as John Kennedy once put it, I am an idealist without illusions. I am an idealist without illusions. And if we want to be successful going into the 21st century, we have to confront the realities and be idealistic in confronting them, and that's what I'm here to talk about. Let me do a little survey here. When did the recession ended? Do you know when the recession ended? 2009. It ended in July of 2009, so it's almost 18 months, give or take. How many of those of you in this room feel that the recession has ended? Let's see a show of hands. Feel it has ended. I serve on 2 boards. I can tell you most of the boards I serve on, they don't feel the recession has ended. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And I want to talk to you with the good news and the bad news. The good news is the recession has ended. We're 18 months into the recovery. The bad news is it doesn't matter that the recession has ended and the recovery has begun. Because unless we can renew the United States of America, all of these other things will not matter. And I'm going to go into why I feel that way, and I feel very strongly about it. And that's what I get fired up and ready to go about. Things I feel strongly about, and I think that we as citizens can make a difference if we understand that what we really need to demand is that we need to be involved in restoring our competitive advantage, the country's competitive advantage. That's what will renew the country. And I want to talk about 4 things. First is I want to share some numbers with you. Second is I'm going to talk a little bit about the Tea Party. Third is I want to talk about where I think we have to do to where we stand against our competition on the world stage today and where we stand as a nation today. And fourth is I want to make some basic recommendations on what I think we need to do to deal with where we are today and deal as an idealist without illusions with those things. Let me start with the numbers. How many of you remember George Carlin? George Carlin, one of my favorites, hippy-dippy weatherman, he would say what? Temperatures today, 74, 36, and 85. Well, here's some numbers. Let's take a look at these numbers. 9.4, 11.5, 14.3, 35, 61.8, 19, and 2.6. Those are numbers. And what I want to do is put those numbers into some context. Let's start, but I want to put them in context, and then I want to say that those numbers don't tell the whole story. They only tell part of the story. Here's our most recent unemployment rate, 9.4%. 9.4% is the official unemployment rate. There's only one problem with that number. The true number of unemployment could be double that, in that we have a large number of people that have fallen out of the job search market. It's even worse because when you combine and underemployment with people that have either had their hours reduced or their wages cut, we get a number. I was going around saying that's about 1/3 of the American population falls into that category. So it's not 9.6, it's not 20. It could be 35% of Americans are underemployed. Last month I was in Washington, D.C., and Larry Michel from the Economic Policy Institute was there, and he said their most recent research shows that figure is closer to 48%. 48% of Americans are underemployed. We're significantly economically disadvantaged. Next number, 11.5. That's the manufacturing's contribution to our GDP. Doesn't sound like too bad a number, except if we go back just 2 decades ago, that number was over 20%. You cannot have a strong, vital, vibrant democracy of our type without having a strong industrial base, and I want to tie into that a little bit later. Official poverty rate, the highest it's been in some time, 14.3%. 14.3% translates into 1 out of every 7 Americans. But those numbers only tell part of the story. Here's what they don't show. That does not include the working poor. People that have a wage above the poverty level. Those numbers become staggering when we add in the working poor. Middle income households. We have 35% of the people in the United States today.
Go back to the mic.
Okay. I'll be back to the, I was hoping it would follow me, but I'll get back to the mic. But 35% of folks are in middle-income households today. Just about 15 years ago, that was 40% of the people in the United States were in middle-income households. If we have a disappearing middle class, we cannot have the United States of America in the way that you and I grew up to understand the United States of America. A vital middle class is significant. Next point is 61.8. That's small businesses. That was the number of the job loss, of the total job loss in the third quarter of last year. Small businesses lost almost 62% of those jobs. Small businesses have historically been the job generators. They have never lost more jobs than large businesses in periods of decline. This time they have. So we don't have the capability to drive growth with our small businesses. So that's a bad number. And 19% decline in the net worth of our of our homes, our assets. That was in 2009. We don't have the figures yet for 2010, but they're not going to be better. They're going to be worse. And final number, and the final number is the one that I dislike the most, by the way. That's the GDP number. 2.6 GDP growth. That was in the third quarter. We don't have fourth quarter numbers yet. That was in the third quarter of last year. The quarter before that was 1.6%. We're going to have GDP growth of approximately 2%, give or take, slightly more than 2% for 2010. Now, this is where the numbers don't tell the whole story again. To grow jobs, we have to start hitting a number of around 3.2 to 3.4% to have true job growth. And here's why. We need 120 to 150,000 jobs every month just to meet new people coming into the workforce. 120 to 150,000. We only got 109,000 last month. So we have not come above that 150,000. We've done it once. We've done it once in the past year when the census is higher. So, though GDP growth is a critical number, and I want to put it in the context of what it means in terms of other nations and within the context of the United States. So those are the numbers. Why are they important? Because if we can't change those numbers, we can't address the source of competitive advantage. And I want to talk about that. The source of competitive advantage, I think there are 4 domestic sources of advantage. The first source of advantage is having an ample supply of good-paying jobs. Another source is having a strong and vibrant middle class, having small businesses that are innovative and entrepreneurial, and finally, having the ability to have a strong manufacturing sector. We are deindustrializing the United States of America. Unless we reindustrialize it, we will not have the country that we want. So those are the sources of competitive advantage. Let me ask you a question. What grade would you give us, an average grade on all 4 of those areas, letter grade, from A through F? F, D, C or D? I think there's no gentleman's C's in here. I think for me it's a D. It's probably a D minus on average, and that's where we stand today. That's the domestic source. Now let's take that and let's look at why it's important that we address this in an international context.